Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, and we're back here at the Baseball Hut. And I need you to subscribe and like this video, and of course, let me know what you think. Boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, I don't think I was expecting this. Were you expecting this kind of just tear down? No, but it's a necessary thing, I think. Now, the subject of this video, I'm very reluctant to do it because then a lot of people can be angry me talking about it, but it's something that has to be discussed. But it's important to talk about it because where are the Mets going to be next year and beyond? Okay, Max Scherzer pointed out during a press conference, pointed out to Ken Rosenthal, the Munchkin, that the Mets aren't going to be big buyers this offseason. First of all, that's not his place to discuss that. That should not have gotten out. He should not have talked about that. He's a very strange guy. He's great in between the lines. He seems to be great in the clubhouse. But when you put that microphone in front of him, he says a lot of very inappropriate things, it seems. That he always seems to deflect responsibility onto other people and other things. He doesn't sort of mention how poorly he pitched in big spots. We know that the biggest reason that the team did not win the wild card round last year is because of him. We know that if he'd pitched better against the Braves last year, they would have won the division. And whenever they needed him, every single time the Mets needed him to pitch a big game this year, he pitched terribly. Every single time. So that tells you about what he's all about. So whatever. He moved on. Getting the hell out of here. I was glad. That was a necessary thing that needed to have happen. Now, let's talk about Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has been one of the best Mets players that they've ever produced from their farm system. He was a 2016 draft pick out of Florida. He's the 2019 National League Rookie of the Year. Two-time home run derby champion. Has hit some of the most prolific home runs in the history of this ball club. Is probably the greatest home run hitter in the history of the Mets, aside from Darryl Strawberry. But Pete has one more year left on his contract. There was word that they never said that he was being shopped before the trade deadline. But I'm sure they asked around to some teams. Now, the Mets supposedly aren't going to be a big player in the market, although I have some ideas that they could do to help them facilitate a good team next year, a competitive team. Fangraph says that the Mets are on pace for the rest of the season to win 83 games. I don't see that. I see them probably going 78 and 84, something along those lines. That's kind of where they're at right now. But this team has a big decision to make between now and the winter meetings, particularly with Pete Alonso. Do they sign him to a long-term deal? And if they can't do that, do they take him in season next year, knowing this team's not going to be where it needs to be in the following year and the year after? Do they trade him during the winter meetings to maximize his value as a player and to facilitate a way to rebuild this farm system even more and to put the Mets in a better shape than they are now after this whole fire sale that they created over the last few days? What do they do with that? Now, let me let you think about that. A couple of things I expect to have happen in this offseason. Starlin Marte is going to get traded. Cohen will eat the money and get him out of here because he's got 2 more years on his contract. I cannot see the Mets holding on to him. If they're not going to be good next year, he's going to be out of here. He's the other outfielder that will be gone. Jeff McNeil does not have a crazy contract. Now, he has not produced well this year. I think a lot of it has to do with the pressure of the contract. I could definitely see him out of here too. Because first of all, about Jeff McNeil, he's 31 years old. This team, if they plan on getting good, he's going to be 33 years old. Is he going to still be the kind of player that he is or he was last year? I don't know. But I think he'll be playing until he's 40 years old if he stays healthy, in my view. So he's a guy that's probably going to be on the market, as well as Marte. Now, I mention that because Marte is going to be gone. I thought he was going to be gone anyway. Even if they hadn't done this this kind of fire sale, I thought that he was going to be gone. Now let's go back to Pete. Pete is, again, are you going to sign Pete long term? And if you do, understand Pete is now 28 years old. Are you going to waste his years and wait for the Mets to get good again? We saw what they did with David Wright. They let David sit during his prime seasons from 2009, 2010, 2011 to 2015. Basically waste his prime years waiting for the Mets to get good again. Now, this is not going to be a long, drawn-out rebuild. It's going to be a very short rebuild that the Mets have. But are you going to let him sit around for a year or two to be on a bad team? Maybe the value goes down. Maybe there's an injury. Maybe he gets hit in the hand, breaks his hand, and he's out for the whole season. Is it worth keeping him around if you can't come up with a contract for him? Because the word is, and this is why I'm doing this video, is there is a guy that has an account on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, called Michael Marino, who has sources. He said that the Mets are going to look to shop Pete, and that the Mets are having a difficult time in terms of coming up with a deal with Pete. I get the feeling, and this is my own opinion, that I think Pete will go to the free agency and see what else is out there. That's my opinion. I'm doing it based on just body language, and the fact that he doesn't really want to talk about it tells me that he's really not too interested possibly staying, although I think he loves being here. I think that he can be enticed to go somewhere else. And I have a place, believe it or not, for him to go. Be a perfect place for him. And a perfect place for him to sign a big contract too. So you have to ask yourself, the Mets have the wherewithal to sign him to a long-term deal. That's not the problem. But within reason with Pete. We know that this team has been a problem in terms of leadership. We know Pete has some issues being kind of immature on the field. We know that earlier in the season he was doing that obscene gesture in May. I guess to give like an FU to the people criticizing the team. I think that's what it was meant. Basically, screw you. When he was hitting home runs. And that didn't last long. I'll be honest with you. I think once Buck got a hold of it, that was the end of it. Once the media asked Buck about it, that was the end of it. And he didn't do it after that. And his home run trots have been very, very subdued. But we know that Pete has an issue with being a little immature. We know that. He's a very good first baseman. Although that ball hit him in the face last night. Oh, my God. I mentioned this thing about this game last night. I've seen Met games end on balks. In a game in 1987, Roger McDowell balked in the winning run in Los Angeles. I think it was on the day before Labor Day. It was in 1987, if I remember right. But nevertheless, where could Pete go? Well, there are teams that have big farm systems. But there are very few teams that can afford Pete if they're going to make a trade for him and sign him to a long-term deal. So I kind of gone through some teams that have big farm systems that have sort of been updated. One of the teams is the Red Sox. I don't see Chaim Bloom making a deal like that for him, although he would be really great up there in Boston. I don't see the Guardians, who have big pitching. I don't see them doing that just because they're the Guardians. They're not going to sign him to a big... They're going to sign him to a $350 million contract for 10 years. I highly doubt it. Or 8 years? No. I don't see them doing that. Possibly the Rangers. They have a top system. They would give the Mets a first baseman, Nathan Lowell. The Mets could put him at first base next year. Plus whatever prospects. The Mets have obviously a relationship with the whole Max Scherzer deal. I don't see that happening. But here's a place. It's a big town. They're trying to be a good team again. They were buyers at the trade market. They didn't sell their players. That's the Chicago Cubs. They have a pretty good team. They're one game over 500. They're trying to win that third wild card spot. And I can come up with a package. Be honest with you, give you one I think that you might be interested in. And I think the Mets would be interested. It would have to probably be about 5 to 6 players in this deal. Because you would assume that the Cubs would be able to sign Pete. We know that the Cubs want to bring in another big player. We know that they're gonna talk about trying to bring Ohtani in there this off season. I don't think he'll go there. I have a funny feeling Ohtani will stay in Anaheim. Now, I didn't think that before, but I think that's going to happen now. But this is the kind of package that I could see happening with the Mets. Okay, 3 players I don't want to get into, but I'll give you 3 other players. One, this pitcher that they picked up for David Robinson from the Phillies. His name is Ben Brown. He goes very hard, has a very good breaking ball. It's both rated 60 out of 80. It's really high, especially the breaking ball. First baseman Matt Mervin, who's been bouncing back and forth, and the Cubs don't have a first baseman. They just DFA'd Trey Mancini just, I guess, the other day, I think yesterday. So you could bring in Matt Mervin, Ben Brown, and you'd have to and 3 other players, and you would take back, I can't believe I'm saying this, Pete Armstrong. Bring Pete back. Bring the other Pete back. He's a big prospect. That is the kind of get you would get from the Cubs. You take him back. That's the kind of package you're probably looking at. You probably would get the team's best prospect, plus some other big prospects, plus some depth and for your farm system. And that's the kind of package that it would take for the Mets to trade Pete Alonso to a team. And the Cubs have the financial wherewithal to sign him. He would be humongous in that town. The Mets would get some very good talent. They would get a very good hitter. Crow Armstrong has developed very nicely. He's an excellent defensive center fielder. You can move Nimmo to right field if you have to. And he obviously has been good in center field the last few years with the Mets. And you can move Nimmo to left field or right field or whatever you want to do. And it's not a bad package. It's very fair. And obviously it would be funny to bring back Pete Crow Armstrong and a deal for a big player. But that's the kind of package we're looking at. I will talk more. You let me know what you think about that. I would mention I have a channel called The Prospect Hut, which I'm shocked that it's doing as well. But considering we're all talking about prospects, I shouldn't be shocked. I'm going to be talking about all the Met prospects. So there are going to be more prospects coming in here over the next few months, especially when we get to the winter meetings. I expect them to do all kinds of stuff, be very open to a lot of things, and they should be. This didn't work. And I also expect some things to happen with the manager, with the coaching staff. And I'm going to go through a whole litany of these players as we get closer now. It's got to have stuff to talk about. This is interesting to talk about. But anyway, let me know what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe to this channel. I'll put the link in the description to the Prospect Hut. Go and subscribe there. I did a video a little while ago on the player they picked up for Justin Verlander, Drew Gilbert. I'll have a video on tomorrow for Ryan Clifford, the other player who might be a blue chip prospect as well. So let me know what you think about that. And of course, please subscribe to Baseball Hut. Thank you, and I'll see you later.